Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 150 of the show, and to be honest, I'm actually kind of surprised we made it this far, but we made it to 150 episodes. And ironically, the 150th episode is the first episode of the new year. So happy new year to everyone. Obviously, we're in 2021 now. I hope we are, because, I think a lot of us, from personal experience, we want to leave 2020 in the past. So it's a new year of opportunities, new year of blessings and joy. So to be honest, let's make the most of it. Why not? Because it's a new year and let's make the most of it, But I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening and watching the show. If you're new here, if you're new here, then you're either listening to the audio version or you're listening to the video or watching the video version of the show. And if you're watching the video version, well, you can click the dislike button if you like the episode. You don't like the episode, you can click the subscribe button, notification bell, the usual jazz that everyone tells you to do, because that's how YouTube likes to work, because it's YouTube. It's a very interesting platform to deal with. And if you're listening to the audio version, if you're new, the usual stick is you would share the episode, download the episode, do whatever you want, as long as it's in fair use, obviously. But obviously share the episode, share the show around to your friends, family, whoever would be interested in listening to this. And yeah, if you're also new around here, or if you're a returning listener or viewer, then we're going to do a little bit of house cleaning, because, we got to do a bit of house cleaning real quick so we can get this, show on the road, because it's the first episode of the new year. So let's start off with some house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening. It really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly keep coming back and keep liking these episodes. You keep sharing these episodes. You keep downloading these episodes. I thank you guys for the incredible 2020 that we had with the show, especially because we hit over 2,000 total downloads and we increased the follower count by about 50%. So I greatly appreciate that. We also increased Patreon backers. And again, I do also want to say thank you to the Patreon backers. You guys are great. I love you guys to death. Because, if you're a Patreon backer, you get some nice benefits that we've already posted. So if you want to become a Patreon backer, then you can click the links down below and you can become a Patreon backer today. I do also want to say thank you guys for everything, because 2021 is going to be a very exciting year. There's a lot of things that I have, on my mind that I want to do for the show. We're also celebrating the 2-year anniversary of the show as well. I'm also turning 21 this year. I know some people are going to look at me funny because I'm turning 21. They're like, Josh, you doing anything fun? But all those things aside, I thank you guys, and I hope that we have a wonderful 2021. So without further ado, let's get right into today's episode and start, the first episode of the new year. It's also episode 150, because we've done 150 of these episodes, and here we are. So we might as well just keep the show going, why not? But today's episode is going to be a little bit interesting, because we're going to be talking about a new leak that has recently come out thanks to leaker Jon Prosser. And it's also very funny that I'm actually saying that now for the first time, because now Jon's reputation for leaks has been incredibly profound. It's been very interesting on how accurate he's been the past couple of times recently. And this is no exception of how accurate he is, because we're talking about Apple AirTags, basically. And some of you are probably wondering, Josh, what the hell are AirTags? Let's go with this analogy. I'm assuming most of you guys know what Tile is. If you don't know what Tile is, I'm a bit concerned, because they're pretty common. They're this very popular piece of technology that people like to put in their wallets, keys. I made a very interesting commentary on what you could probably use them for as well, probably tracking somebody. But yeah, So essentially, they're these tiny little tiles that you basically put on your stuff and you can figure out where it is. And it's been I would say a very popular piece of technology. A lot of people like gifting to others. Primarily, some people kind of like to use it as a joking manner to gift to people who like to misplace some things a lot of the time. I kind of did that in my own case, but it's a very popular piece of technology, essentially. And what it does is you basically connect it to an app and you're able to, whatever is connected to it, you're able to find it if you lose it or misplace it. And to me, what's very interesting is in this space, there's not really that much competition, especially popular competition that's promoted and things like that. Like Tile seems to be the one that has been the most, predominant, the one that's the most publicized and things like that. And now you have Apple stepping into this conversation with AirTags. And we've known about AirTags for a while now because Jon has talked about these things for a while now. And I'm going to be posting a link in the description down below. This goes for the audio version and the video version as well, where you will get to see Jon talk about this stuff, because Jon, like I said, Jon was openly honest that he got some inside information from Apple that shows AirTags, that just shows them. And I'm going to be putting a clip right now where you get to see what Jon showed, where it actually is in iOS. They show the animation that's possibly for iOS, and Jon is very confident because he did renders a while back, but this is what we got. And the reality is it's very cool. We knew about this technology for a while because Apple has been secretly promoting this piece of technology in a lot of their recent product launches, the U1 chip. The U1 chip is the ultra wideband chip that has been, it's been mentioned briefly in the HomePod Mini. It's in the new iPhones. It's in the iPads and the Apple Watches. And this piece of technology, the specific chip, the U1 chip, is designed to work with this AirTag technology, which is basically Apple's answer to Tile, but primarily designed for the Apple ecosystem and using the Apple ecosystem to its fullest. Because what AirTag essentially does is you're using other iPhones or other Apple products to locate the AirTag, essentially. And the AirTag will primarily be, attached to wherever, whatever it's attached to. So you can put it in your backpack, you can put it in a case, you can put it in a wallet or something. And it essentially uses iPhones in the surrounding area that all have U1 chips, or any Apple product in the area that has a U1 chip, to precisely pinpoint down to the centimeter where your product is, or essentially where your item is, because you wouldn't just throw a random AirTag on the floor and just be like, well, I need to figure out where no, like, you obviously are using it in something. So that's why you put it in a bag, or you put it in a wallet, or you put it on keys or something. And to me, this is interesting because Apple is basically using their own ecosystem to its fullest. They're essentially allowing you to have more options to locate stolen pieces of technology, because that's why a lot of people like to Find My iPhone stuff, because it comes in handy to find missing products. It may not be the most accurate all the time, but that's why the U1 chip exists now, to make this, I'd say, it's progress, essentially. That's what's going on here. It's just pure progress. And to me, I just find it interesting, because the fact that Apple was able to get this down to at least centimeters in terms of accuracy is very impressive. And the fact that what Jon has mentioned, that these things have been done for a while now, because yes, that is true. These things have been done for a while. We knew about these things for a long time. We knew they were ready. The primary reason that a lot of people were saying was because of the pandemic, that it doesn't make much sense to launch this style of product that relies heavily on moving around, traveling, that involves a lot of things that we don't really get to do nowadays because of the stuff going on in the world. And Apple has been very hesitant to launch this product because it just doesn't see the need to right now, because given the current circumstances of the world, they'd be kind of tone deaf to launch something like this when not many people are really traveling or moving around that much, where things are more confined, they're more tight, that people don't really like doing these kind of big trips and probably losing something. And when a lot of jobs are also being done at home from now. It's just, that's the current situation we're in right now. And to me, it makes sense. Granted, a lot of people have joked that they're surprised Jon hasn't been, hunted down by Apple because of this, because, well, Jon has been very accurate with a lot of his leaks recently. And to me, yes, this just adds to the credibility of Jon, because Jon has just been very accurate with all the information he's promoted. But this does leave a very interesting predicament, because now we're finally getting competition in the space that we didn't really expect competition from, because Tile has just been the big overarching, I would say pretty much the gold standard, but the gold standard is kind of like the only standard. So it's really your best option. And the fact that Apple is now creating its own version of this type of technology, but it seems to be more accurate, it'll be interesting to see how companies like the company like Tile is going to respond to this. Like, what are they going to do to counteract this? What are they going to do to improve their technology? Because if they know Apple is able to get it down to the centimeters, will Tile be able to do the same thing? Even though, yes, Tile is more of a universal option that it can be used on everything, and AirTag is primarily designed to use the Apple ecosystem. And I do feel like while this is a cool piece of technology, that is a bit of my concern with it, is the fact of how limited it is to the Apple ecosystem, because it heavily relies on the U1 chip, which is exclusively on the Apple ecosystem. And this is a big issue that I'm surprised a lot of people haven't mentioned, because it sounds cool. The fact that, hey, it gets right down to the centimeter, it can be very precise, but it is limited to the Apple ecosystem, because outside of it, you can't really use it. And that's what a lot of people have been annoyed about the Apple ecosystem, is how closed off it is, and how a lot of great pieces of technology are limited to this ecosystem, like the Apple Watch and, now the AirTags. The AirPods aren't so limited, because you can still use them on other platforms, or specifically on Android and Windows machines, because they're still Bluetooth devices, but they are limited in terms of functionality. Like with the AirPods, you can't use the actively do the noise canceling and the transparency mode, like switch them like a dial, like it is on the iPhones and iPads, where on my iPad I can just click the volume slider and then switch between the modes without having to click on the earbuds. Because on an Android phone, like when I've used it on either my S20 Ultra or my Pixel, that I can still do the transitions, I can still do transparency mode, I can still do active noise canceling. But if I don't want either, I can't turn it off. Like I can't do anything. So I'm kind of SOL at that point. And this is a issue that I've had, to be honest, with a lot of nice products that Apple makes, that yes, I do agree these are great products. They set the standard for the industry, but the fact that they're still limited to the Apple ecosystem, when in reality, I think they should be a little bit more open with these specific pieces of technology, makes more sense. And I get it. It's Apple. They want to keep the ecosystem nice and tight, because they want you in there. Like, they want you buying their products. They want you to have an iPhone. They want you to have an iPad. They want you to have MacBooks, Macs. They want you to have AirPods. They want you to have friggin' HomePods. They want you to have AirTags. They want you to have all this stuff. And that's how they get you, is they want you in this ecosystem, relying heavily on them for all your products, when a lot of people don't really flow that way. A lot of people don't really like that. A lot of people like having a Windows machine, but like having an iPhone or like having an iPad. I personally will always prefer having an iPad over an iPhone, because to me, I like the functionality of the iPad far better. It's a better device for content, basically consuming media. It's better at basically creating content if you want to use it, because of the whole push for Apple Silicon now. And yes, I get it, the M1 Max and things like that, but still, we'll talk about that much later down the road. But to me, that has always been the big issue, is the limitations that come with the Apple ecosystem, is that it has to be in the system. And this is what makes it, I would say, to me, this is what makes it a tough sell to say that this is an amazing competitor to Tile, because it's limited. It's not as universal as Tile. Yes, Tile may not be able to get as accurate as AirTags, but it's still a much more universal system. It's still easier to use. It's easier to use on many devices that can either be iOS or Android, that there's no set limitation besides, the actual tile itself. And I think over time, tile will eventually increase or implement new technologies to maybe get closer to that centimeters. Maybe not exactly, but maybe closer. But the big selling point is that, hey, well, yes, we may not be as accurate as AirTags. We are more universal than AirTags. And this is something that I'm surprised a lot of people haven't mentioned, and that this should be mentioned in the discussion, because when we're mentioning new competition in this market space, we should acknowledge, how does it work? Is it a very niche product? And I get it. Tile in itself is a pretty niche product because it's designed for people that just misplace things a lot. And that's why people buy them. They're just like, look, I constantly keep misplacing my wallet, or I need to keep tabs on where my wallet is in case if I lose it, or my keys or whatever. So they just stick a tile on it. And yes, there's many versions of the tile too. There's the regular, there's a pro, there's so many versions of this damn thing. And AirTags, if you look at them, yeah, they're, well, I wouldn't say pretty big, but when you look at the video that I showed you a little bit earlier, then that's what we're dealing with essentially. And it's just a very interesting situation. To be honest, it is. Whether you want to believe me or not, it is going to be interesting to see how Apple goes about doing this, because this is a piece of technology that I think, yes, it's cool that it uses the U1 chip, that it's able to be this accurate, but the fact that it relies so heavily on having the U1 chip or having the Apple ecosystem to help you is a bit of an issue, because, if you don't have an iPhone and you buy one of these, you're essentially relying on people nearby to help you out. And that's just, it's a bit of an issue. And I get it. People are like, well, Josh, what about people that do have iPhones? Because a lot of people do. And I do agree that if you are in the Apple ecosystem, this is a great buy for you. If you want to keep tabs on, say, your backpack that always carries your expensive MacBook around, or iPad, or any piece of Apple gear you like to carry on you daily, I think this would be a great thing to buy, personally, in my opinion. Granted, I don't know the pricing for this. I haven't seen anything regarding the pricing, but I think it'd be a worthwhile pickup for people that are in the Apple ecosystem, because that is who this is designed for. It's specifically designed to work in the Apple ecosystem. This is not designed to work outside of it. And that's just the cold hard reality, even though I think it's kind of dumb, but that's just the world we live in, and we're just going to have to live with it and deal with it, because this technology is limited to the Apple ecosystem. And overall, I think it's a great piece of hardware. It does, again, make sense why Apple has released this, because given, like I've said before, given the current world circumstances, it does not make sense to release a product that relies heavily on movement, that relies heavily on traveling, that does all these things when the world isn't the way it is right now. But I think over time, and once we finally see Apple release this product, which, let's be honest, Apple could have easily shadow dropped these things whenever they wanted, because they've done that multiple times. They did that last year with the MacBook refreshes, the iPad refreshes. They did that with the iPhone SE. They've shown that they will shadow drop things. And if they're pretty big items too, they'll shadow drop them. Granted, they're not going to shadow drop like the iPhone 12 or something like that, because let's be honest, that would be ludicrous. They want the attention. But that's just the reality we live in, is that Apple could have shadow dropped these things anytime now. These things have been ready for a while, and that's just the cold hard reality, is they've been ready for a while now. But overall, I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see when we finally get these in hand, so people can actually test these things out, at least to the best of their ability, and see how they work, because that's what you have to do with every piece of tech, is you have to evaluate basically the manufacturer's claims and see if they hold up, because a manufacturer can claim this, they can claim this, they can claim everything they want, but we have to put those claims to the test, because then how can you really prove it? Like, you have to put these claims to the test. And I feel with something like this, as a niche product, it's going to be interesting to see how people go about doing this. Because yes, like I said, it's extremely limited to the Apple ecosystem. Like, I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but that is the reality you have to live with in this case, is that you have to be mindful that this product is very limited to the Apple ecosystem and products that have the U1 chip. Granted, the U1 chip is now becoming a more universal standard in Apple products nowadays, but that's just the reality of it, is that you have to rely heavily on the U1 chip, and specifically products that have the U1 chip. And right now it's only Apple products, because Apple is not going to share this chip with other manufacturers. And that's why things like this are going to be limited to the Apple ecosystem. But that's the cold hard reality in the situation. Does it suck? Yes. But am I excited to see how this thing performs and how it competes against things like Tile? Absolutely. But this is the nice thing, is that when you have competition in a market space, everybody wins, because you as a consumer, or specifically us as consumers, will win in the end, because we will get better products, because now someone is getting pushed to make something better to compete with this other person. And that's where things get really, really fun. And I'm excited to see how Tile responds to something like this, because as we mentioned before, Tile is the leader right now in this industry. They're the ones that a lot of people look to. Or specifically, if you want to buy this type of technology, you're going to buy from Tile. The fact that now Apple is making their own proprietary version of it, it'll be interesting to see how they compete to retain the Apple ecosystem, or specifically retain users inside the Apple ecosystem, even though now Apple is going to be selling them their own proprietary version that will be considered much more accurate if you are using their hardware. And that's where we're at right now, guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I really do appreciate you guys coming back and listening, or watching this episode, because a lot of you like watching my face on YouTube, which I greatly appreciate you. And if you like listening to my voice on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, again, I also greatly appreciate you. But I thank you guys for everything. I love you guys to death. We will have another episode this week, because we will be talking about the S21 this week. But I really do thank you guys for everything. I hope you guys had a wonderful New Year's with your friends and family. I hope you were trying to be as safe as you possibly can be, because the world is still a funky place. Cheers to a new year. Cheers to a new year filled with blessings and joy. That, yes, last year had its highs and it had its lows, but we made it, we got through it, and now we have a new year filled with new possibilities, new opportunities. So let's just be grateful for every day we have, because we're not guaranteed another day. So let's try to be as grateful as we possibly can be every day of our lives, and just enjoy this year to the best of our ability. But I thank you guys for everything. Please continue to be safe. Have a wonderful week. I will see you guys Friday for the Friday episode. But until then, bye guys. Take care. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.